For staying with Morning Live. Let's cross back to Peter Ndore now, who's at another of our SABC, a New Age breakfast briefing. And today, it's about the hot issue of state capture. Peter Ndore, it's over to you.
Simpua, thank you very much indeed. And a very warm welcome to all of our viewers who are watching across South Africa and indeed across the continent on Channel 404 on DSTV. My name is Peter Ndore, and it's a pleasure to be presenting the latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC and today sponsored by JIC Mining. And as you heard from Simpua, we're talking about that hot topic which has been termed state capture. But the question is, do we actually know what it means? What are the implications? A lot of people will tell you about things as lobbying. Where does lobbying begin? Where does it end? And has this whole issue been blown out of proportion? Some people are saying that this is actually a distraction for bigger issues. Well, we're going to explore that, and we've got a panel that's assembled here to help us unpack the issue. And I'm going to introduce them now, but just a reminder that you can be part of this conversation as well at Morning Live SABC, #TNA BizBrief. But let's meet our panelists now, and let's start talking about state capture. And to my right, I'm joined by the Acting Group CEO of the SABC, Mr. James Aguma. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Peter, and welcome to visitors.
Okay, next to you is someone who's a friend of ours, who's familiar with this face, Mr. Mzwanele Mani, who's the president of the Progressive Professionals Forum and also the founder of the Decolonization Foundation. Always great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Peter, and the viewers.
And next to you is the Group Executive Corporate Affairs, Mr. Claudio Mutsoneng, again, somebody who we know quite well. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and the audience.
And somebody who's also starting to make a name for himself with this movement that is founded recently, the Black First, Land First, is the leader, Andile Mqitama. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, okay, gentlemen, state capture, that's the title of this conversation. But let's put it all into context. And in fact, I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Mani, partly because I've seen some of the things that you've written, and I need a definition of what state capture is, so that we all can kind of, follow the thread of this conversation. In your view, what is state capture?
Yeah, look, I think actually the whole country is captured, if truth be told. The whole country is captured. I mean, including, if you look at our judiciary, is all based on a Magna Carta document. So in fact, the whole country was some kind of a modernized colony, if you like. So from that level, we are captured, number one. Number two, also from the economic point of view, this country is, the black people in this country own only 3% of the JSE. The stock exchange in this country, we're talking some 15 trillion market cap of the stock exchange. For black people in this country, own about 3%. The rest, this is why sometimes I get nervous to say, why are people excited about the Oak Bay, the Guptas? The Guptas is only a 10 billion or so company, 10, 15 billion company. We're sitting here with a total, whether I put Mutsipe, Ramaphosa, all of them put together, all the black people in this country, only 3% of the JSE. What we should be focusing on in this country is the fact that 97% as black people in this country, we don't own. But there is no focus on that. We're busy just chasing this one family. So for me, I'll say we have an economy that is captured, a few companies that have captured this economy. We have rating agencies that are here to make sure that the interests of the Western economies that have got a stranglehold in this country. I mean, the JSE is 35% owned internationally. So actually, South Africa, if the truth be told, is really a modernized colony. Most of us are just modernized slaves. Most people that call themselves black middle class, they're just one paycheck away from poverty. A lot of people call themselves millionaires, but they're actually paper millionaires. So actually, we're in serious trouble in this country.
All right, okay, so you're saying that we've been captured a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm still going to push a little bit more about the definition of state capture, but before that, a lot of people will say that state capture talks about the capture of certain institutions, whether it is the NPA, whether it is government itself, whether it's the SABC, Mr. Aguma. Has the SABC been captured?
I don't think the SABC has been captured. If you talk about state capture, I think the important thing we need to understand is what makes a state. And I would think you would have to break it down into, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and the so-called fourth estate, which is the media. So those components make up what a state is, and the SABC is just but, a small bit of one of those components. So I would not think the SABC has been captured because it's independent. We have an independent board, and we make sure that we remain independent. But that does not mean that we cannot feel, the impact of certain people who want to capture it. And we, as SABC, are very aware that the areas that are captured are probably, or attempted to be captured, are probably, the areas of procurement and so on. And we're putting up resistance to just make sure that it's transparent and equitable and benefits previously disadvantaged people.
All right. Mr. Mutsuaneng, following this theme of the SABC and whether it's been captured or not, I mean, we're sitting here, and right behind me I see images of the New Age, which is a company that's owned by the Guptas. So people at home will be saying, how is it that the SABC is in partnership with the New Age? Has the SABC not been captured in some way?
Thank you very much, Peter. No one can capture SABC. The reason why people are making noise, they know that they can't capture SABC because some of us were there. And actually, when we talk about capture, when we talk about capture, it's not about business only. It's also about individuals. And I'm going to demonstrate to you. At the SABC, SABC has been captured by big companies. What I mean by that, before us, SABC in Auckland Park, which is head office, people were doing business, and individuals, big companies, that is capture itself, because they were not allowing emerging business people to come on board, do business with SABC, and black business people. And if you look at the policy, people are saying the policy is good in this country. I don't know whether they are good or not. Where I work, the policy, they were not good. They were good for big companies and white people, not for black people. And why I'm saying this? Why I'm saying this, at the SABC, I mean, if you want to start a business from nowhere, because some of us, we represent people from nowhere, and we are there. Why I'm saying this is because if you want to run a business, and we as South Africans, we are saying we want to empower people, you can't ask people about experience or where have you been working and so on. It is our duty to make sure that we empower black people. We don't ask experience, whether they have been doing business. That is what we are dealing with at the SABC. And to deal with that issue, what we did, we changed the procurement policy. That noise that you are hearing, because some people have been captured, individuals, people, have been captured in that organization. And when you touch technology example, they will kill you, because it's where big business are doing business. And this big business are not South African business. They are outside this country. And when they come here, they have what you call evergreen contracts. Evergreen contract means you have a starting date, you don't have an ending date. That is capture itself. So when we arrived, we said, no, you as big companies, if you come and work for SABC, we dictate for you. You don't dictate for us. You take 6 months, but you also make sure that they are black people. And they are not just fronting. They are also shareholders. And the weakness in South Africa is, when we talk about empowering our own people, example, you don't have tools, broadcasting tools in South Africa. Most of the tools We buy those tools from outside the countries. These people, they come here. They don't build factories here. They come and make money and go. If I was in charge, what I will do, I will say, come for 20 years, open factories in South Africa, make sure that there are shareholders, black people, and when you leave, our own people are empowered. They can produce those tools of broadcasting to do business in South Africa. That is what we need to focus on. And I want to talk about capture. You see, even some of the board, the way they are appointed, I have a serious problem because they are captured by certain politicians. The reason why you hear SABC people making noise, that process of portfolio committee appointing board members, it is wrong. It should stop because these people, they serve politicians when they serve at SABC. And you can see, even now, those who resign, they resign because someone captured them from politics. And Jackson Mthembu should be the last person to talk about the SABC. Jackson Mthembu should know that I met him at certain hotel where maybe it is capture, but no one can capture me. He knows that. That meeting was coordinated by someone, and we met. But I met so many people, but they know that no one can capture me. That is reality. So he should not talk too much. And he can't say that he's leading the process of SABC and make noise even before the process of portfolio committee. Because immediately when you make that noise from outside the portfolio committee, actually you are influencing the direction of the portfolio committee. They have changed people who supported SABC in that portfolio committee. We are saying already they have taken a view to say at the SABC board is wrong. We are saying that process is flawed. We'll challenge it even in court.
Okay.
Because I need to deal with these issues. You know, politicians, they should focus on what they are supposed to focus on. Because when you fight SABC, you fight this current board, you are fighting transformation. We are fighting people who are empowering black people. Because this current board under Professor Maguve has done very well. SABC, we don't negotiate transformation, we implement transformation. And we are not apologetic about it.
All right, just to clear up a few things. The first one is, are you saying that Mr. Mthembu tried to capture you at this meeting?
No, not really capturing. But what I'm saying to you is he should not talk too much. Because if he talks too much, some of us, we don't want to talk about our internal discussion that we have been doing with people. But SABC is not captured. It can be captured by anyone. But he has an interest.
In the SABC?
Yes.
What interest is that, do you think?
No. You see, I don't know. I will talk at the right time.
Okay.
If he's still talking too much, I will reveal the information.
Okay. And then just again to clear up, the first question I asked you actually was about the new age, because you've gone on record saying that you're not supporting newspapers, etc., etc., but it seems as if the new age has a special relationship with the SABC. Explain that one to us.
You like this, the Gupta's one, okay. No, let me deal with the new age. When I came there, the relationship was already there. The contract was signed already. But for us, what we look at the SABC, if people have interest at heart to empower and be positive about South Africa, we will work with such people, and we work with them based on that we share the same views about the countries, that you can't just talk about negativity. You also need to reflect positive story in South Africa, because there are good positive stories in South Africa, not from politicians only, from individuals. People are doing very well. So New Age played that role. So we agree with them on those views, and we'll always work with them as long as we share the same views.
Mr. Mkitam, Black First, Land First, you've taken a view on state capture. Help us understand what you see state capture as. Mr. Manyi has says we've been captured a long time ago. Are you from the same school? Define state capture and what your view and what we're seeing at the moment is.
Thanks, Peter. I think before I start, I should recognize that as Black First, Land First, we are inspired by the leadership of Ntate Hlaudi Motsoeneng. We actually think black managers in this country, including our leaders in cabinet, if they were to take the same attitude, this country will be transformed tomorrow. The problem we have is the slave mentality amongst our leaders. Our leaders are afraid of white people. Our leaders are afraid of white capital. And our leaders are captured. And when we see somebody like him, we are inspired and we're saying, let us all follow that example. But your question is about state capture. This question is a wrongly structured question because it presupposes that in South Africa there was a time when the state was not captured. This state was captured since 1652 with the arrival of white settlers who stole our land in this country. And now, the mistake that happened is that in 1994, the state was not transformed. The state was not given to black people. So the big fight today is white capital feeling threatened by some of the moves of President Zuma. And I can just mention three quickly. The South African engagement with the BRICS process means that we are no longer a colony from the point of view of being controlled by the IMF and the World Bank. We have the chance to run our own economy and run, the infrastructure and so on from our own this BRICS bank. Number two, this idea by President Zuma now again moving away from the ICC. You have seen white capital coming in a big way, but the biggest offense was the employment of Minister Des van Rooyen without consulting and begging the two big families that control South Africa, the Oppenheimer family and the Johan Rupert family. They are offended because Mr. van Rooyen or Minister van Rooyen is not from their camp. He was going to go into Treasury and discover that, in fact, these white companies, these white monopoly companies, are stealing from the state. They control the state, and that is how they managed to have monopoly over the economy. They had to bring in Pravin Gordhan by attacking the rand, attacking the economy, and in fact saying to the president of this country, if you don't employ Pravin, this country's economy will be destroyed just like they've destroyed the economy of Brazil. So we as BLF are very clear, state capture has happened, and Pravin is the representative of white capital, was appointed on the basis of white capital's threats to the economy and to the president. It is criminal. Right. We've opened criminal case against that, and the media doesn't want to touch this matter.
So hang on, let's clear that up straight away. My recollection is that the president said, I have listened to many representations about my decision to appoint Mr. van Rooyen. After serious consideration and reflection, I have decided to reinstate Pravin Gordhan. Those are the words of the president. It doesn't sound like the president picked up the phone and said...
Of course, look, we know, and we have presented both the police, the Hawks, and the former public protector who was protecting white capital with evidence that actually at least 8 representatives of white capital, including APSA, Maria Ramos, and all this about top 10 in the JSE, they had met the top 5 of the ANC last December. And they told them, already they'd run on the rent, if you don't employ another minister, we are going to have a bigger problem with the economy. The president was not given an option. And that's why we opened a criminal case, including now, of course, we went to High Court to say Pravin must be removed because he's conflicted. The shocking thing is this. Pravin Gordhan has got shares in the same companies that insisted that he must be employed as a minister of finance. Now, that is a clear conflict of interest. He is there serving their interests. Look at the Ogbay matter of the banks, for instance. Now, there's an interministerial committee set up, and Pravin is asked to serve there. He never attended one meeting. Why? Because the issue of the banks was going to come up, and he has got shares in these banks, which had illegally closed the bank accounts of Ogbay. So he is conflicted. He can't operate as a minister. And also, we are saying as BLF, 26 billion rand Praveen is running around about 6.8 billion so-called suspicious transactions. We're saying 26 billion was directly stolen from the Reserve Bank under his ministry by, amongst others, Johan Rupert and ABSA. He's not interested in following that matter. There is a report was given to former President Mbeki. We paid for it as a government for that report, which showed that 26 billion was stolen from the Reserve Bank. Now, if Praveen was saving the interests of black people or the country, that is the first thing that he would have done. But he's not interested in it in the same way that Advocate Thuli Madonsela was not interested, because both of them operate under capture of white capital. Our state is long time captured by white capital and its concentration of power.
Okay.
Very few white people control this economy. We must stop that and actually start with the land, deal with the JSE, and that's the only time democracy will mean something.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think we've had some opening statements that certainly have provoked some thought. And if you have some thoughts at home, at Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief, that's where we'll get your messages and your questions, and we'll put them through to the panel and also the people here at home. But we'll continue this conversation and again try and unpack this issue of state capture. So you've been talking, gentlemen, about white capital, you've been talking about the colonialists who came, and we're kind of subject to all this. But the reason why this conversation in particular has come up in recent times has been particularly because of the events around a certain family, the Guptas. We have a deputy minister of finance who said in an affidavit, sworn affidavit, I was approached by this family, I was offered a job, and I turned it down. Mr. Mani, we're talking about JSE and so on and so forth, but perhaps if you can control who becomes minister, then maybe that's state capture.
I think at the risk of affecting the grading issues of the country, I think the time has come that we must lay it all bare. And what is the issue here? When I say that we've been captured a long time ago, including our constitution, we've got a very captured constitution. National Treasury is the only department that is mentioned in the constitution. I think those CODESA discussions, we were actually outmaneuvered in a big way in those CODESA discussions. We have a constitution in this country that has centralized power in National Treasury. Now, even President Zuma actually cannot willy-nilly instruct National Treasury. National Treasury gets its mandate from the Constitution. This is why, from time to time, white monopoly capital runs to the courts, because that whole thing is designed to serve those interests. This is why, for the past decade, we've had triple PFA, this procurement policy, which says 80% of the tender points must go to the lowest price, when we know that black people cannot compete on an equal footing with white people. You know, this is why we even have PFMA, MFMA, which says if you have to appoint an international company, you don't have to follow a process. It's a built-in deviation. So we've got the whole system that is designed to make sure that the white monopoly capital succeeds. A whole system that is designed to oppress black people. And all of these policies are managed at National Treasury. So National Treasury, if you like, is a center of oppression for black people in this country. This is the truth, you know. So even if you're to look at the entire economic cluster, you have an economic development ministry. This ministry goes and collaborates with the DTI. They come back with a BE facilitation status. And this BE facilitation status, they give it to the IDC. As we see it here and now, IDC invests something to the order of 200 odd billion rand. Now, this BE facilitation status means that wherever IDC is invested, those companies are now going to be deemed BE compliant. IDC can now go and do rescue missions of white companies that are floundering, as it were. And as they assist them, those companies are deemed BE. So the whole economic cluster of government is actually captured by white monopoly capital. This is why you're sitting here as black business, you are wondering, why am I not prospering? And so on. You've got laws. I mean, people say that the ANC has got the best policies. The problem is implementation. I'm saying, no, that's not true. The ANC indeed has got good policies. But the problem comes when those policies move into legislation. They get infiltrated. They do not do what the ANC had resolved to do. So you sit here with a situation where the implementation of the laws of this country continues to impoverish black people. So when you talk about the capture, that is the essence of it, where the whole thing is designed to benefit just a few.
Let me ask you in another way then. Is it okay for a private business person, and we're not talking about any specific case now, is it okay for a private business person to have sufficient influence to influence who gets appointed a minister and who doesn't?
I think the confusion in this country, people confuse lobbying. All business people, they have discussions with everyone in government. It's called lobbying, and it's an internationally understood and accepted practice. You go to America, you will find that. The problem comes when, as to at which point is lobbying executive authority sitting elsewhere. That is a problem. And all of those things become illegal, and then you have to put through a process to check the legality of that. But the issue of influence, I think everybody influences government policy.
So when do we cross the line between lobbying and genuinely holding someone who's got power in your pocket?
I think this is what Tulima Donzela is investigating.
Okay.
In fact, she was given a broader brief. She narrowed it. The broader brief was for her to investigate state capture. So this thing is broad. So that the issue that the BLF had raised about the involvement of the Ruperts can also be part of the mix. But she decided to narrow all of that and focus only on one family, which I think is a tragedy, as it were, because if you look at the size of Naspers, for instance, Naspers, which is also has got a very interesting interest in terms of how government operates. Naspers is a huge organization. I think it's sitting at some R1 trillion kind of market cap versus OPE, which is about 10, 15 billion and all that. So if you look at the size of the influence that that company has, I mean, the government, whether it likes it or not, has to advertise on these platforms of Naspers.
Mr. Guma, you're a state entity in some ways because the shareholder is the government. Have you been lobbied? Because you're a person of influence now. Have people come and tried to lobby you?
I get a lot of people coming with all sorts of ideas. One of them that I can clearly remember is where somebody comes to me and tells me, why don't you sell Metro FM? And I sit back and say, but Metro FM is one of our most valuable assets. Why should we sell it? So there are a lot of people who come lobbying. I'm aware of that. But as I said, some of the questions that arise are that what you're lobbied for is detrimental to the SABC. And when we push back, you notice that there's a lot of reports in the media, about other progressive things that you're doing.
So you're talking about lobbying, which I can understand, but have you been approached beyond the point of lobbying, where they've offered you money or some kind of incentive? Because I think that's when we start talking about capture proper, is when you are offered something in return for you selling that asset.
I don't think they're brave enough to offer something because maybe they're aware that my background is that I'm from audit, I'm an accountant, so I'm not sort of like very straight.
Yeah.
So you always hear that, could you sell an asset, for example, as Metro FM? And we just stop the negotiations, or rather the conversations right there. We say, no, it's not available to sell, there's something that anybody has come to me and said, here is a sack of money, please do something that's against us.
Captured laws.
Our laws of this country are captured. I mean, if you look at the construction sector, for instance, the construction sector has some grading system controlled around what is called CIDB with various levels. Now, for you to be able to build a bridge, you've got to be a level 9. And for you to be a level 9, they require everything that black people are never going to have anytime soon. You know? That is what we're talking about. So you've got capture at such a grand scale that is not funny. You know, the little discussion that the Guptas might have had with whoever is an end issue. It's so small, it's so insignificant. The issue is we have a systematized capturing, and we're not even aware of it. In fact, people defend this capture. People want to continue to be this poor. I think the biggest issue, if you ask me, what is the biggest mistake the Guptas have made? The biggest mistake the Guptas have made is to disrupt the eating of the white monopoly capital. This is what the Guptas have done. They've disrupted them in the mining. They've disrupted them in the media. Now Spurs is not happy that they're sharing the platform with the Gupta. They call it the Gupta TV, but when it's ENCA, we don't call it the Rupert TV. So this is all part of stigmatization.
All right. Okay. Mr. Musoneng, you said the SABC hasn't been captured. A lot of people from the outside looking in look at the SABC and have accused us as an organization of being captured by certain politicians, and that what's happening now really is about the ANC faction fighting, and that one faction is fighting the other, then we're caught in the middle. Have you felt any influence from political parties? Because that's another form of capture, isn't it? To sell a certain story, portray certain politicians in a positive light or a negative light?
Now, life is very interesting. And I need to talk about the issue that you are referring to, about lobbying. Lobbying is normal. There is nothing wrong about lobbying. I have been lobbied several times to appoint this executive by business, by politicians, but I use my own conscience and I appoint right people. And actually, if someone comes to me and said, appoint this one, I go this way and appoint other one. Because I'm asking myself, why should I appoint this one? You see, and I have done that several times at the SABC. I even called the individuals. I said, you know what? Actually, I was going to appoint you. But in this case, this one and that one said I should appoint you. Unfortunately, I'm not going to appoint you anymore. I'm going to appoint someone. And I engage the person. People at the SABC, they will tell you, if I'm lobbied, I have a serious problem. I take another direction. Because lobbying, maybe it's that capture that you are referring, maybe someone is captured. So they want me to appoint someone that is captured already. So for me, it is about integrity. It is about individuals. I mean, if you are a leader, even if people lobby you, you should appoint people that you believe they will be able to deliver. That's all that you need in life. But also, we should not really, talk about issues of lobbying. There is nothing wrong about it. People come to the SABC example. They said, no, you know what? Lituli House, they want 1, 2, 3. And then you ask them about Lituli House. Who's Lituli House? I know that building is Lituli House. Who inside? Who's the person? They will never tell you the name. They run away. So, for me, it is about leaders. You know, some of us, we are not afraid to call the shots and take decisions that we believe that our conscience are telling us to do. After 20 years, you can't talk about transformation in South Africa. You know, when you talk about transformation, you should touch it, you should feel it. We as South Africans, we have been denying our own people. Example, the artists themselves. We have been paying millions outside, making sure that those people outside the country, they have more money in their pockets. When our own people are dying poorly in South Africa, they can't even afford to look after their family. That is what South Africa has been doing. So we changed that at the SABC, and we are not even apologetic about it. And we are prepared, if we need to go to jail, because the Constitution itself doesn't favor black people the way it has been written. Not people themselves who are taking the decisions, but the Constitution itself, the policy itself. But the policy is very interesting. Who write the policy? It's certain SOEs, which is us. The same black people. They write policies that they know themselves. This policy, they are not in the interest of their own black people. Their interest for the big companies, because there's certain individuals, they are captured. SABC will change those policies. The reason why people are making noise is because they have eaten this big chocolate cake. Now we are saying to them, you share with other people. Example, people are fighting with the SABC to say there is loss about 411 million. The question is, it is a loss when we put money on black people. And we are saying, if it is a loss, it is a good loss. Because we are empowering our own black people. Because SABC, what you need to do is to sustain SABC financially. You pay service providers on time. You pay your workers. You make sure that you don't retrench your workers. And we are the only broadcaster who's not talking about retrenching people. Either they are retrenching, you can go to print media, but people are not making noise. People are making noise because they know that we as SABC have taken a view to say when it comes to black people, they approach us, we have money in the bank. And actually money, when it is in the bank, is there to be used and empower people. You know, I make an example to say you are a father. You are just happy that you have 10,000 rands in the bank. Your kids, they don't have shoes. As long as you have 10,000 rands, you are so happy that you have money. Actually, you should make sure that your children have shoes, they can go to school. This is what we are doing at the SABC when we empower black people.
Okay. All right. Mr. Pitama, we're getting kind of, when we talk about particularly the state capture report that's sitting in the court system at the moment, and here we're talking about the size of Oak Bay versus the size of the JSC. But in the end, perhaps it's more about influence rather than size. If you can influence the appointment of cabinet ministers, if you can influence how those ministers write policy in your favor, isn't that capture?
I think let us follow the logic of Zwanele here. The key ministry is this ministry, Treasury, the Ministry of Finance. And we know, it's not a speculation, that this current minister was appointed because the one appointed by the president was not favored. Now, that is a clear state capture. Capital. Now, the narrative of state capture is created by people who have actually captured the state, because they feel like the grip over the state is they're using this narrative, or the state has been captured. When they do it, they call it rescuing the country. When their competition is trying to do it and failing. I mean, the Guptas apparently they failed. They tried to fail because everybody said they tried to offer me a job, I refused. On the other hand, white capital has offered Praveen a job and is in that job. So that is where real estate capture has happened. But the media which they own, Johan Rupert owns almost everything here. I mean, we know also Naspers is owned by them. City, when you read City Press, you think it's a black publication. It isn't. It is owned by Afrikaner money. And it was there to make sure that white capital reproduces itself. Most of the publication, they're sweated. It's not owned by us. The narrative that they run is to make sure that white capital, again, is normalized. And then whoever threatens the interest of white capital is projected as criminal, as incompetent, and in fact as capturing the state. So we need to understand that we are dealing here with a complete monopoly. And we ourselves captured by this narrative of state capture. Because every time we see a problem, we say it is Zuma and it is the Guptas. Now, we must be clear, the Guptas have failed to capture the state. The guys who have been able to capture the state, and we must actually, they must be persecuted because it's not allowed by law. It is white capital who have employed Pravin Gordhan. Now, you see they're organizing a march on the 2nd of November. It is white capital. If Pravin is innocent, let him go to court, and the court will say this man is not a fraudster. And then he'll be vindicated. But why must white capital stop the court process, including saying to the state president, you must intervene? They say there's separation of powers. But the same white capital says President Zuma must interfere and said Pravin must not be taken to court. How? Let Pravin, if he's innocent, go to court. And we believe that there's enough evidence to show that he's a fraudster. And that is why, as BLF, we have said, we've taken him to court further. We have submitted papers yesterday in the High Court. We want Pravin to be declared, captured, compromised, and totally incapable of serving the interests of the country because he is part of white capital. Let us leave it to the court process. Don't ask Zuma to interfere in that matter, because if Pravin is not a fraudster, and we believe he is, if we look at the evidence before us, which we have submitted to both Tulima Donsela and the courts, shows that Pravin is there to serve the interests of white capital. Every black person in the country who's going to march on the 2nd of November to defend Pravin, they must know they're not defending Pravin, they're defending white capital, they're defending... In particular, we have not mentioned this. If you look at the JSE, 97%, of course, 98 or 97% is white owned. Look at land. 22 years later, 80% of the land is owned by only 35,000 white families in this country. So we are, all of us black people, we are landless in our own country. And this is the thing, this is the conversation we must have with the president of the country. We must say to President Zuma, you know, President Zuma, white people never trusted you because you don't come from their universities. They never trusted you because you are never captured by their system of education. Now, forget about white people. Look at us. Make sure that land is given to black people without paying a cent. President Zuma declare free education and then call. There is enough money here. No commissions, no task team. President Zuma must just call the top 10 of the JSE white companies and tell them, from today, you will pay for free education. And you must walk out of that room. Right? Okay. So we are asking the president of the country to stop listening to the white noises and white voices. He must listen to us. 22 years is a long time for black people to remain sitting talking about exclusion. It is our country. We are a majority. There's political power. It must be used.
Okay. All right. We have to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. We'll pick up your tweets, we'll pick up the questions from the audience here, but you've had, I think, a good amount of food for thought. More after this. Stay with us.